Hello and welcome to the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. We are back. I'm Sean Hammond. He's Michael Dwojak. We are wrapping up the spring practice period. OTAs ended last week for the Bears. They got a month off now with training camp starting early. The schedule was a little bit earlier. We didn't see the last OTA was all rookies. We didn't see any veterans. They sent them home, give them a little time off. But the spring is over, and so we've got a little break here. We've got some time to sort of digest what we saw this spring, even going back to free agency and the draft and everything. And obviously we're looking ahead to training camp in about a month here. Michael, how you doing this morning?
Good. It feels like training camp outside. Doesn't it feel like it should be like the second week of August and we should be like getting ready for like the second preseason game? Like it is it's hot out there, guys.
It was hot at 7 a.m. and it was one of those mornings where you're, at least for me, I had that feeling like, oh yeah, we're gonna be out here at 10 a.m. practice in the heat.
Yeah.
Training camp. It's training camp weather. It's hot here in Chicago.
Right.
Guys, if you're watching on the Twitter link, click through to YouTube. You can join the conversation in the chat here. We'll get to some of your questions and comments in a little bit. We love it when you guys come join us. Also hit the thumbs up on YouTube. That's a great way to support us as well. We thank you guys for joining us and love chatting with you. I'm going to start this with obviously what we saw from Caleb this spring, sort of big picture. Michael, what were your takeaways from just watching him integrate himself with this team and get to know his teammates and what you saw in the practice field over the last couple of weeks?
I think the biggest thing you saw, and you mentioned this in your story last week, Sean, was just the Bears aren't babying Caleb Williams. Like they're not like, we're gonna do this stuff first and then this stuff first. Like it seemed like the mini camp, the OTA part of the year was pretty much, hey Caleb, like this is what you're going to be running. You're going to be doing this type of stuff, and if you want to work through some stuff, like you want to see if you can make this throw in the NFL, if you don't want to make this throw, like it felt like the spring was really like, I feel like it always is like a time for like experimenting with stuff and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. But especially for Caleb as a rookie quarterback, it felt like, it felt like a time where you're just going to like figure out what you can do right now, figure out whether this works or not, like make a mistake here. It's fine. Like it's mini camp. It's not a big deal. Like, obviously, we heard a lot of times from Eberflus, Shane Waldron that, they're trying to set up like the basics, like the fundamentals and that kind of stuff. And I'm sure they did that. But it also felt like Caleb was trying to figure out, like, can I do this? Can I, get defenses off sides by moving my eyes? Can I, like, obviously attempt this throw? And can I go up the middle? Should I scramble? So it felt like a lot of experimentation. And it also felt like they're not babying Caleb. So obviously with all of that, we saw some good, we saw some bad. And, we're not going to, all of a sudden start saying, this is going to work. This is not going to work. But it was definitely a spring for Caleb of, you're the quarterback. There's no question about it. We got to see what you have and now learn from it for the next month, relax a little bit. It seemed like he's not really going to relax over the next month based on his press conference with you guys and OTAs. And it seems like it's pretty much just, get to work, figure things out. And once training camp gets started, like this team feels like it's ready to go full speed.
Yeah, he doesn't sound like he's going to be shutting off, tuning out anytime soon. And I that's fine. He's your rookie quarterback. He's your starter. You need him. There's a lot of catching up to do when you're joining the team in April and you're learning the new offense and all that. It sounds like they're making plans to throw some of these guys. We saw Caleb and Rome obviously work out with Keenan and DJ before the draft even. It sounds like they're going to do the same thing. Who knows if that's going to be maybe that'll be out in LA or wherever. But yeah, a lot of these guys, head to their homes when they're on a break. And so some of them at least will be getting together to throw. And you love to see that. And, hopefully that is valuable for Caleb and for the guys on the offense. He also mentioned, I thought was interesting. He said, would love to get some defensive guys out there too. You don't see that a whole lot.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in the past, at least not from Bears players. But yeah, I mean, look, they're a team. Offense, defense. You guys are all on the same team. You're all trying to get each other better. you want some defensive backs out there that could totally be valuable. I would think that would be valuable for everybody. But you're right, Michael, when going back to what you were saying, like Shane Waldron said it, like there's no guardrails on this offense. There's there's no training wheels, whatever you want to call it. They're throwing everything at him this spring. And that's the best way to test your rookie quarterback. And from everything we've heard, it sounds like things are going well. I'll say the thing that also stood out to me just watching Caleb is just how smooth his throwing motion is, just how compact he is. It's a really different. Justin Fields was a little bit more lanky. He's a little taller. The throwing motion didn't always seem as smooth, and certainly it's different with Caleb in that regard. And you really see the way that he's able to layer throws, short, intermediate, deep, with ease. And he seems to have a really good understanding of how to do that and where the defenders are. It just seems like a lot of quarterbacking comes natural to him. And that might be true on some level. And obviously he's worked really hard to make it look that way.
Yeah, and like the talent is there, but I was also kind of impressed with obviously when you're the first overall pick, you're going to have this, but like the football IQ is there too. Like, based on what you kind of saw from him in 7-on-7, 11-on-11, like he knows when to make the right play. Obviously, we saw some interceptions, we saw some bad plays that, when we see those plays, it's kind of like hard for us to tell because we don't know exactly what they were trying to do and trying to run through that situation. So it's hard to tell who's like making the mistake at what point or whatever when we're at these practices. But it just seems like the football IQ is there too. He's got the talent, like you talked about. He's able to make the throws, either tight or, over the defender. But it feels like he knows like what he's supposed to be doing. He knows he's doing his progressions pretty well. It's not obviously at a place where he wants it to be. But it does seem like he like knows the play pretty well. If he doesn't know the play, he's learning, like running to Shane Waldron right away and trying to figure out what just happened. Why didn't that work? So the football IQ is there. And the biggest thing I think is also there is that he's willing to learn. Like he's like kind of at a level right now. I don't want to call it like a crazy level, but he's kind of at a level where it's like, when you're one of those guys who's just like obsessed with like knowing why something works, why something doesn't work. He feels like one of those guys who's just going to, dissect everything and figure things out. And that was another thing that kind of impressed me, just the football IQ and the wanting to like know everything at a perfect level.
It's funny you say that because last week we were talking with Kerry Joseph, the quarterback's coach. And that's one of the things he said is that Caleb always wants to know why we're doing X, Y, Z, right. Why we're doing this on a certain play. And he was joking, like, when I was playing and you were a player, you didn't ask why, you just did what you were told. And that's kind of obviously how things have changed over the last 20 years or whatever. But yeah, Caleb is asking a lot of questions and he's learning. And that's what you want in your rookie quarterback. You don't want a guy who comes in here and thinks he knows everything. And yes, Caleb was very successful at the college level, but I don't, and he has super, super lofty goals. He's talked about 8 Super Bowls or whatever. Yeah. But he's not coming in here thinking he's got it all figured out. And, you talk to Kerry Joseph, you talk to even Austin Reed, the undrafted quarterback. I talked to him at rookie minicamp, and that's one of the things he said, like, Caleb knows nothing is going to be handed to him and he's got to work for it. And I think that's why he's not really going to take a break over these next 4 weeks until training camp starts. He's still going to be studying. He's still going to be working out. It just won't be in the team setting the whole time. But you'd like to see that drive. And obviously, Caleb, like I said, big goals. You gotta have a strong drive if you're going to achieve those.
And isn't that refreshing just based on the, months of hearing about how like Caleb is drama, Caleb is this, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how much people believe that and how much they really looked into all these random reports just came out about him, even though he never said anything. But and obviously, it's June right now. When we're in August or like October and things aren't going well, things could obviously turn very quickly. But you haven't seen any of the diva stuff. His teammates haven't seen any of that. Like, I feel like that was a very common question, how have you, even for the defensive players, like, how has Caleb progressed? And also, like, what kind of teammate is he? And every single answer has been like, he just is a great teammate. Like, he wants to learn. Like, Like it just seems like this kid is like focused on winning, and that's refreshing to see based on just all the reports that you saw. And obviously, it would be fair for him to be like, I'm the number one overall pick. Like, I'm really talented. I know that I'm really good, that some people are calling generational, but Caleb really acts like a quarterback who's just like trying to make the team and like trying to like, the vibe is good for what you want your franchise quarterback to be. Now you got to see that, throughout the rest of the offseason and during the regular season.
He's just trying to get to know his teammates, and he's trying to get better.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. I mean, that's what it seems like. Yeah. I forget who said it, but somebody with the Bears pointed out, like, I don't know where all this Hollywood stuff came from. He was only in LA for 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, he's from Washington, D.C. Football has been his life. I don't think the Hollywood stuff was necessarily fair, in that lead up to the draft.
No, yeah, it was crazy too, because like I remember, I forget what defensive players or no, it was Cole Kmet said it, and he was like, yeah, he was only there for 2 years. Like, I don't know why he became like Hollywood all of a sudden, just because he like got an NIL deal and like just bought some cool things. Like, it's funny how like we could go to a whole different thing about how like social media works and everything works today, but it was funny just to read those reports, and it's refreshing to see that Caleb isn't anything. It doesn't seem, based on him talking to the media and what his teammates are saying, that he's anything close to what people were worried about back in January.
And I think any USC quarterback, especially any successful one, is going to get those same storylines or whatever you want to call it, is going to be attached to his name, whoever that is. And certainly, that's exactly what happened with Caleb. One more time, guys, if you're watching on Twitter, click through to the YouTube link. You can join the conversation in the chat. It's good to see some of our regulars chiming in. Mr. Shorty, Rick, CJ, welcome back, guys. We'll get to your Bears questions shortly. We're a month away from training camp, Michael. I feel like, I don't know if we talked much about Hard Knocks on the show here. Certainly we may have mentioned it when it first came out. What are you excited to see from the Bears when they're on HBO, in August here?
Anything. Like, you and I were kind of talking about this at minicamp, but I feel like, I feel like a lot of people have talked about this, but like, the Bears have kind of been like a secret franchise, if that makes, for how much of a, secret you can be as a franchise. Like, you don't know too much about them. Like, you don't, like, about, obviously, George Halas, about Virginia McCaskey, George McCaskey and all that stuff. And obviously Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles have kind of been more bigger figures recently than we've kind of seen in the past. But, you don't like see too much into like, and I know the Bears like have this, whatever their, video series they have that they do that kind of gives you an inside glimpse into things. But other than that, I don't think Bears fans truly know much about this organization. Like, I feel like they, have these old preconceived notions of like, the Bears are cheap, because they were cheap back in the day. And like, they, have, out of, old facilities. And like you and I both know, like they have like probably one of the best facilities in the NFL. And you just, ordinary fans who just like obviously don't have the access that we do, like they don't know these types of things. So I think it will be good to just kind of let the light shine on the organization, just show like, hey, like these are our facilities, these are like, our coaches, and these are like our people who work here every single day, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just exciting for Bears fans to finally get a glimpse into what this organization is like. And there are so many storylines you can go with. Obviously, Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen, obviously joining the team, all the new guys who joined the team. I'm sure, the stadium will be talked about, because obviously, they'll talk about Kevin Warren coming in, and that's a huge reason why he was hired as the Bears president. So there are so many storylines for this team to look forward to. But, the overarching one is, just Bears fans getting a chance to see what this organization is, as opposed to just what the rumors have been throughout, the past 3 or 4 decades.
That's an interesting point about Kevin Warren. I hadn't really thought about much. I think of Hard Knocks, and obviously I think of the coaches and the players.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's a storyline that is hanging over this organization. Not hanging over, that sounds dramatic, but like that's a storyline that's been a big part of this organization for the last year is Kevin Warren's entrance and what they're trying to get done. I don't know if I was going to say, I don't know if Kevin would want to do that. He'd probably want to focus on some of the, on the players and the support staff and all that. But at the same time, he seems like a guy who's never been afraid of sitting in front of a camera. So maybe he would be willing to talk a little bit. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that fans don't get to see. And I think that's going to be exciting. There's so many people who work for the Bears that have interesting stories. I'm sure T-Med, Tony Medlin will be featured on there. He's the equipment guy who just has been there forever and everybody loves him. He's going to have a moment at some point, I'm sure. Yeah. And obviously you got some really interesting players that you could potentially feature. I asked Velus Jones if he would want to be on the, on a segment or whatever, and he said, "Yeah, I'm down for whatever." I think the players find this to be really cool, and when the news came out, you saw so many players sharing, hey, Bears are going to be on Hard Knocks, and they're excited about it. And I think anybody would be excited to be featured on that. Obviously, the Bears have control over what exactly gets out. If there's stuff that they don't want out, they're not gonna let that out, but at the same time, I mean, Hard Knocks is still going to look for good stories, and certainly they can always find those with guys towards the end of the roster.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is it also shows that people are excited about this team, right? Like there's a reason why Hard Knocks wants to do a feature on the Bears. Like this team is viewed around the league as up and coming. It has obviously the number 1 overall pick. It has what many believe to be at least a top 10 defense, if not top 5 defense. Like there are a lot of great storylines to look forward to. So I think that's the biggest thing for a lot of these players. Like, it might get annoying after, week 1 where you got all these camera guys in your position meetings and you had a bad practice and you're just like, man, can we just like get a minute and just like, do our own thing? But in the grand scheme of things, I think it just shows that, the league and a lot of fans outside the, who aren't Bears fans are obviously going to be interested in the Bears to see what's going on. And I think that's exciting for, a franchise and for players who are just like, well, the last 2 years, things haven't been too great. Like last year, we were talking about a terrible start and whether Matt Eberflus is going to get fired and all that kind of stuff. And now you're in a position where, the NFL world is really interested in you. So, it's cool. Like it'll be fun for a lot of fans, but I think it also shows that the whole league is interested in the Bears and there's reason for excitement as opposed to just, Bears fans being excited for another Bears season.
We got a question here from Rick that I want to get to. Changing course a little bit. More of a concern, the O-line or the D-line in 2024?
I would say
I'm thinking about this one.
I think I would say the D-line, mostly because I'm not terribly I think you have the pieces there on the offensive line. Like you obviously have your tackles there in great spot. Obviously, hoping that Braxton Jones is fine and it wasn't that big of a deal that he missed a little bit of minicamp. But your tackles are good. I know we're still trying to figure out who the Bears center is, but you have 2 capable centers to go in that position. You got good guards as well. Obviously, the Nate Davis stuff is I feel like it's kind of getting tiresome for Bears fans already, and we're not even a year into the contract. But I think you have the pieces there on the offensive line, where on the defensive line, you have so many questions other than Montez Sweat. Who's going to be on the other side rushing? Is Javon Dexter, is he going to continue to develop? I think you have so many questions there. So I'm probably more concerned about the defensive line just based on there are more questions about it, where on the offensive line, you got to figure out what the perfect order is and what it's going to be, once we kind of start the season here. But I feel like the pieces are there for the offensive line, where for the defensive line, you're kind of like, well, are they there, or are we going to need to, add a couple more or figure some stuff out here?
I'm going to take the opposite. I'm going against you, and I'm not doing that just to argue with you, Michael. I am honestly more concerned about the O-line for these reasons. You just look at how that D-line finished last year. I know Justin Jones is gone. I know Yannick Ngakoue is not there. I just think that they have some really nice pieces. I still think they need to potentially add another defensive end, whether that's free agency or a trade, whatever. But I feel pretty confident as long as Montez Sweat is healthy that group's going to be really good. I think Javon Dexter played at a really high level last year during the second half of the season. And I don't foresee any issues with him stepping into a starting role. I think that's good for him, and that's good for the organization if you got a starter on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
Look, we thought they had two centers last year with Cody Whitehair and Lucas Patrick. That's kind of obviously it's a different situation. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I'm still worried about the center spot. I'm still worried about guys staying healthy. I'm worried about Tevin staying healthy. I don't know what's up with Nate Davis. Like you said, I'm kind of tired of talking about it, but obviously we keep talking about it because it keeps being a thing. So we have to address it. You know, I feel really good about Darnell Wright. I feel good about Braxton when he's healthy. Hopefully, he exited minicamp a little bit early. Hopefully that's nothing. There's no reason to think it's anything notable, but just that center spot is so important and so concerning. And you know, you like the addition of Karan Amagaji. He didn't play all spring, and so you know, maybe on paper you like the depth they have, but we don't really know with him, you know, and Coleman Shelton and Ryan Bates, one of them is going to be the center. And so hopefully that solves a problem. Maybe I'm wrong about all this. Hopefully that solves a problem and you have a really good backup in whoever doesn't win that job. But, you know, I got to see it. Because that was a real tough spot for them last year at the center spot. Mr. Shorty said, I think Yannick Ngakoue will be back. He played well after they got Sweat. Yeah, he's still out there. He's still available. He ended the year on IR. I don't think it was something that would be an issue at this point. I think he could be back. I think he's they obviously liked him enough to sign him last year. And I think he would be a prime target if they're still looking for somebody. I don't think Ryan Poles is rushing at this point. He doesn't really have to. They didn't sign Yannick until August last year. I forget. It was like a week into August maybe, or a couple days into August. So yeah, be patient. Maybe somebody you're not expecting to be available in a trade is there, but I do think they're going to add somebody at that spot, Michael.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely add somebody, and Yannick is obviously a good candidate. I don't know. I don't know what you think, but I don't think they would trade for a defensive lineman at this point. Like you have Booker coming here as he's developing. You know, based on what we've seen with Poles, I don't think he's one of these guys like, you know, he obviously traded for Claypool. He obviously traded for Sweat. So he's not afraid to make trades, but I feel like this could be a stopgap year spot for, you know, until, you know, Booker kind of develops. So, but yeah, I think they obviously have to sign someone or bring someone in. And Yannick's a good candidate. Obviously, you know, don't know who else could get maybe, you know, released here in the next coming weeks. But yeah, I think you definitely need to add one more piece at least to that defensive line. And Yannick is definitely probably you know, I think he'll go with the August signing probably, and maybe a little bit earlier just because they have that Hall of Fame game, but maybe it doesn't matter for a veteran like him. So they'll definitely add somebody, and Yannick's definitely a strong candidate.
I fully agree that, you know, finding somebody on the free agent market is far more likely. The Bears, looking at over the cap right now, they got $21 million in cap space. You can sign a 1 year, $10 million, 1 year, $12 million deal. That doesn't really hurt you all that much.
Yeah.
Dorn Shaver, welcome to the show. Dorn chimes in with Shelton is actually better than people think. Yeah, I have never and would advise fans not to just assume that Ryan Bates is going to be the center, because both these guys are getting chances. And Shelton played center last year for the Rams, and Bates was on the bench. You know, he was the backup. And so, yeah, I would not assume that Ryan Bates is a starting center. I think he might be the favorite. It's really hard to say. I think it could be either one of these guys.
Yeah, I think you saw that in OTAs and in minicamp. Like one guy was the center for the day and the other guy took over. And, you know, and Eberflus didn't seem to, like, he wasn't leaning one way or another whenever he was asked a question, you know, about literally anything on the offensive line. Really, you know, you asked him about Nate Davis and he was like, maybe, like, we'll see. Like he wasn't really committal on Nate Davis, even like being in the spot that he's at. So, Yeah, I think anything's on the table. And honestly, right now, I wouldn't be able to. I don't think right now. I think right now, like I know you had an offensive line breakdown article last week, and it felt like your tackles were your most like surefire like positions, but everything else on the line, like I would not be positioned. I would not be surprised to see different combinations coming out from the guards and the centers position, because I think we just don't. Obviously, health is a big thing, but I also think we just don't know enough about what's going on with this offensive line and the players involved in it.
Mr. Shorty has a good asterisk here when we were talking about cap space. Yeah, Caleb Williams hasn't signed. Rome Odunze hasn't signed their rookie deals. So, yeah, you do need to factor that into the $21 million in cap space. They're on rookie deals. They're not going to cost that much. You're still going to have some left over. I'd have to run the numbers on that. I don't have that off the top of my head, but you would still have a little room to sign somebody. But yeah, no, that's a great point. And I don't know if we've talked about that. I wouldn't be overly concerned that they haven't signed yet. I mean, once you get into camp, then I'd be concerned. But we got a month before that. And last I checked, only like half the first rounders had signed their rookie deals from this past draft. So at this point, I wouldn't panic about Caleb, about Rome. Obviously, you wonder about Caleb because he doesn't have an agent and because, he wants to do things differently. He talked about that a lot. But I still think he's gonna. You're not gonna go into the season without a deal. You're not gonna basically waste a whole year of your career trying to get a little bit extra money when the salaries are pretty much determined. There's not a whole lot that they can debate.
Yeah, and the contract is like the language of the contract is pretty set, like for most rookies, especially in the first round. So you're pretty much just arguing about, like what's more guaranteed, or like I want like this type of bonus or that kind of, like you're just working out that kind of stuff. You're not like, the money is what the money is. It's just set like in stone. Like you can't really work on that. And that seemed to be kind of like what Caleb's reasoning for why he doesn't have an agent right now, because he was just kind of like, well, the contract is like you can't really negotiate that too much with it. So, and he was asked this on Wednesday, I think, and he said like, I'm not worried about that. Like my lawyers are taking care of that. His team is taking care of that. And, I know, I think it was Roquan Smith, like he
held out for a little bit. Yep.
Yeah. So like, obviously, you don't want that. Eventually Roquan Smith obviously turned into a great player. So who cares and that kind of stuff. But I know it's all good feelings right now, and you don't want to give ammo to people who have, a disdain toward Caleb Williams. But yeah, like you said, like maybe half the first round is signed. Obviously Rome hasn't signed either. I imagine they'll get signed. It's not that big of a deal. And I don't really think it's worth worrying about right now, because there's not much you can do with the contract right now. It's pretty much just like basic language and adding a couple wrinkles here or there. Maybe the Bears want to do that just to keep their players happy, especially that could help them in future negotiations if you help them out now, as opposed to what you want to do later. But there really isn't too much wiggle room. So I really wouldn't worry about it.
Deadlines are important too, let's remember that Caleb Williams didn't declare for the draft until the very last day he could. And so, sure, it might go on for a couple more weeks. I still feel like he's going to be signed, at the very latest, probably the day before training camp or whatever. I don't think that this is going to be a huge deal that drags into training camp. I don't know why it would be. Because
it doesn't make sense for him either, like as especially for him as a quarterback, and based on what we've seen from him over the offseason, like he's going to need every snap during training camp, and holding out is going to hurt his career.
He's too focused on winning football games for that. I really think that. And the other thing too is like part of the reason he doesn't have an agent is because, or at least one of the articles I read was, if you can't really negotiate these rookie deals, like what's the point? Like, why are you giving money to an agent when your deal is basically already determined for you? And so, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. We got a few more minutes here, Michael. If you're listening out there, you got Bears questions, throw them in the comments. We'll get to them. We got some time here. We can answer your Bears questions. I want to do a couple offseason superlatives really quick. We can blow right through these, Michael. Let's take Caleb Williams out of the discussion. Obviously, he is the biggest offseason addition. But other than Caleb, who is your biggest offseason addition for the Bears?
Keenan Allen, I would probably say, just based on what, you just see him out there and you just see all-pro vet who's been there. He's done it. Obviously, we've talked about the question about whether this is the only year he's going to be with the Bears and whether that's, we'll see where that kind of goes and how, Keenan's people and Ryan Poles kind of figure things out about whether he gets an extension in here or not. But I think he just elevates that wide receiver room so much and is so valuable to, that offense. Like, he's valuable to Rome Odunze just so Rome has like 2 all-pro guys to learn from. He's valuable to DJ Moore because obviously DJ can learn some stuff and, will help him and obviously in his career or his season and, taking some attention away from, DJ and Rome. But it just feels like Keenan is adding a presence that the Bears kind of haven't had, where you have that like experienced vet who has been there, has done it, has helped, past quarterbacks. He's worked with Phillip Rivers. He's worked with Justin Herbert. It just feels like he only adds things. I don't see really any negatives. He's not like a distraction in the room. He's not like a high-profile guy who's just going to cause problems and is a guy that you kind of put up with the antics just because of the production on the field. Like, he just seems like a guy that was a great trade. Obviously, some people will question whether giving up a 4th round for 1 year, if that's what ends up happening, was worth it. But it just seems like a guy who has just kind of adds, raises the level of the offense as a whole and adds a really good experienced guy into that locker room.
I fully respect that choice. I absolutely get it. I like it. Obviously Keenan Allen adds a lot of veteran presence, everything you were just saying. I'm going with Rome Odunze as my biggest offseason addition other than Caleb. And I'm thinking big picture. Look, we don't know if Keenan Allen's going to be here a year from now.
Yeah.
And you got Rome Odunze, a guy who you think could be a really good number 1 receiver down the line. Probably not going to be the number 1 receiver on this team this year, but you got him for 4 years with a 5th-year option. If he's as good as advertised, that's going to be a great deal for you. That's going to be great for Caleb and for Rome to go through this thing together. I think that is just going to be such a valuable thing. We could be talking 3 years from now about how much those 2 guys have accomplished together and how much they've grown together. I like that from the long-term perspective. Anytime you can get a top 10 pick, those are the guys who are going to change your organization. And obviously Caleb is one of those guys, and Rome Odunze is the other. Michael, they're doing some construction on my street. Do you hear that?
I don't hear anything.
Okay, you don't hear anything. That's good. I hear a jackhammer going, so hopefully that's not interfering with you guys. The other one, my one other guy I'll mention too. DeAndre Swift, and you know what, that kind of segues into my other, the next superlative was most surprising addition this offseason, and I'm gonna go with DeAndre Swift. I guess because. Not that it's super surprising that they signed a running back, but just how much of a priority that was. That was the number 1 thing. That was the first thing they did in free agency. And they went out, Ryan Poles is with the, he comes from the Chiefs where they don't pay running backs a lot. They haven't over the last 10 years. And, you saw what they went through with David Montgomery, trying to get him to sign a deal. And obviously he went elsewhere. That's a big commitment, 3 years, $24 million to a running back. But, DeAndre Swift's only 25 years old, and he has a chance to really elevate this offense. He has a chance to be the number 1 back. Somebody, let's see. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the comments here. CJ asked, running back by committee, or is Swift the backfield? Is it Swift's backfield? Yeah, I mean, DeAndre Swift is your number 1, and he's probably going to get a lot of the touches. He's really good. I've been impressed with him catching the football this spring. Khalil Herbert's still going to be there, though. I mean, you're still going to have multiple guys, and dudes are going to get hurt. But Swift is definitely. I think we're going to see a lot more like that first year under Eberflus when David Montgomery was really, really featured in that offense.
Yeah, I would agree. And that was probably going to be my answer to that question as well. Like you said, like, or how weird of a priority it was, where it was literally like, weren't we like a minute into the tampering
Yeah.
period when Adam Schefter was the first? It's like, that was the first like move in the league that Bears are going to sign DeAndre Swift. You're like, oh, okay, like, didn't think that was that big of a deal. But yeah, I mean, everything you saw in, minicamp and OTAs, whenever he was there, like he got the number one reps. He was always there. He was, it just seemed like they were using him in multiple, they weren't afraid to, dump it off to him. So I would agree. He's definitely someone that, obviously he's a good rusher and he'll get you good yards. And obviously by that point, you probably have a running back by committee because Roshan Johnson obviously provides you with some really good speed and Herbert gets you some good short yards. But I definitely think that they're going to be throwing it a lot more to the running backs, which this obviously gives another safety net for Caleb Williams.
Robert says Johnson could take a big step up this year. Yeah, I mean, I still expect Roshan to be involved. He's going to be that number 3, at least going into the season. He's going to be involved in special teams. Travis Homer is going to be there for special teams reasons. They signed Ian Wheeler, undrafted. That's maybe an uphill battle for him to make the roster, but I would think that they'll want to have a running back on the practice squad because that's a position where you just go through so many guys injury wise during the season. So you want to keep somebody there. A couple other superlatives. Michael, who's your rising star of the 2024 Bears?
My rising star. We talked about Rome a little bit, so I won't say him again. I think Tyreek Stevenson, from what you saw from him, is
I like that pick.
Year, like it seems like he's going to take another step. Like that just seems like a home run draft pick by Ryan Poles. It seems like he is excelling in his secondary picks. Like all those guys seem to be close to being elite at their position. And we've talked to everyone. I think we've talked to everyone except Tyreek. During the spring, and everyone kept talking about Tyreek, about him taking that next level. I think Eberflus talked about it as well. And you just see it, just that kid's talented. He really stepped up, later in the year last year. And I think he's a big rising star. And, for a Bears secondary that already has a good chunk of stars, like I think he's just going to rise up. And I'm excited to see what he can do and how deadly that secondary can be for opposing offenses.
Yeah, I like that pick. I'd throw Jaquan Brisker into there too. I know he's not, he's been around a couple of years now, but I think he could really potentially, take that, bring his game to that next level. I mean, he's such a physical player. I'm going to go with Rick's guy here, Gervon Dexter, rising star. I think he has, you look at the numbers from last year, the last 8 games, he didn't have a ton of sacks, but he was getting to the quarterback. He was disrupting. You watched the film, you saw him. It was very apparent that he was making a difference. And yeah, right now he's stepping into the starting lineup at that defensive tackle spot. And I think that he's poised for a really big year. I think it speaks volumes that they didn't add anybody at that spot, or at least they haven't. Not that they still couldn't, but they see Gervon Dexter as their starting 3 technique, and that's a huge boost of confidence for him. I saw he got married over the weekend, so congrats to Gervon. He's definitely my rising star. I mean, he has a chance to really make a big difference, and I want to see what he can do as a starter. I want to see, we saw the second half of last year. I want to see what he can do when he gets that many snaps from the get-go, and I think he has a chance to be a really good player for the Bears this year.
And that's huge for this team, right? If he is able to, because then you pretty much drafted a franchise tackle.
Yeah.
Like, you obviously have control of that for 3 more years, under team control. And that would be huge for this team, especially for how important it is to Eberflus's defense. So, I would agree that he's, we've seen, coaches have talked about like his body size. Obviously, we saw him. He looks bigger. He looks, he looks better. Obviously, the defensive line wasn't really able to do any, pass rush or, much rushing during the spring portion of the offseason. So, it's hard to really tell exactly how he's doing stuff and how he's, going to handle offensive lines and that kind of stuff. But Yeah, I mean, he's going to be huge, and he seems the part. Now it'll be interesting to see in training camp here in a month whether he's actually going to be able to do it.
Next one, player you're most worried about.
Player you're most worried about? I think I would probably say, you talked to him and it was interesting to, kind of see, his responses to everything. But, Velus Jones, for how much is Ryan Poles going to commit to this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to be, I don't want to say stubborn because stubborn feels like a bad word to use in this case, but is it going to be is Poles able, he was able to say that he messed up and move on from Claypool. And if Velus Jones doesn't succeed and is not doing well in the preseason or even the first few games of the season, is he willing to say, I made a mistake, it didn't work out, and we just need to cut bait? So I think that's one of them, that I'm really interested about. I think there are a few of them, actually, as you kind of see in the comments.
People have thoughts.
A repeat offender about this one. So, I think he's one of them. And I think, it'll be interesting to see, based on whether the new kickoff rules help him become more of a presence in that team and for the roster. But I'm curious to see, how he does and how Ryan Poles this responds if he doesn't, make the changes I think the team wants him to make.
I'm going to throw out Nate Davis's name as my selection because I don't want to overreact to the spring. But at the same time, like we obviously know what he went through last year during training camp, and he missed a lot of time for personal reasons, and that's okay. That was okay. And yeah, he had a slow start to the season. I thought that if things are sorted out and he's able to focus on football, this could be a really, really good year for him. And then we come out this spring and he's not there, and so that's a little bit disappointing and concerning. I mean, we'll have to see, what this looks like in training camp. I don't want to blow it out of proportions. It was the spring. They're not in full pads. He's been around the block. He's a veteran, but I'm concerned about that. And I'll throw Tevin in there as well from the injury perspective. Obviously, you want Tevin Jenkins to stay healthy. He's got a really, really big year ahead of him, a contract year. He's a great person, great personality for this team. Everybody likes him. I just hope he can stay healthy. Those are the two guys I'm most concerned about. We have some thoughts here. Let me get somebody in here mentioned Jalen. Oh yeah. CJ says, JJ only because he got paid. I don't think I would be worried about that. Just in talking to him, look, this is a guy who he's probably upset that he was second team All-Pro, last year. He's a guy who is very internally motivated, and I don't think the contract is going to change anything for him.
No, and he said obviously a press conference is different than, game action, but he said right away, like, how much does the contract change things? Like, it doesn't. Like, doesn't change his approach, doesn't change what he is. And he's like focused now on being the best cornerback in the league. He literally said, like, what are your goals? He was asked, what are your goals? And he said, I want to be the best cornerback. And he has the potential to do that. I think, obviously, it's going to take some work and he's going to have to take his game to another level. But there's motivation there. And I think that's huge for a guy like him where, it's easy to say, well, you got paid. You can kind of, take it easy a little bit, obviously watch out for your health and all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't be worried about that with him. I think there are definitely other players that I would be more worried about than I would be with Jalen Johnson. He's not even probably in my top 5.
No, I don't think he is either. Mr. Shorty says, I'm terrified that Caleb somehow sucks. I mean, look, any rookie quarterback, you don't really know until you throw him out there on the field. And so I think it'd be wrong to not be a little bit scared, not have that 1 or 2%. What if this goes wrong? Because we've seen it in the past. We've been through this before. Mitch Trubisky, Justin Fields. Obviously, I don't have to go through the whole list. But I don't think I would spend too much time in that mental space. I mean, I think he's doing the right things, like we talked about earlier. He seems like he's on the right path. I don't think I would be overly worried that he's totally going to bomb because he's he was a really good quarterback in college. At the very least, I have a hard time seeing this guy not being at least a decent NFL quarterback.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing about all of this is your expectations. Like I've seen in our chat, like I think we were asked, like, can Caleb Williams like lead the Bears to the Super Bowl? I think that's drinking the Kool-Aid, guys. I think we need to take it easy a little bit. And I think that it's your expectations, right? And I think you need to know that this is going to be a rookie quarterback who's going to make mistakes, even though he was the number 1 overall pick. I think, I think it would be kind of, I don't know if it's unfair to expect him to have the season that CJ Stroud had last year, but that was like an anomaly. Like he wasn't like the 3rd quarterback to ever have. I forget exactly what the stats were, but
doesn't happen often. Yeah,
like it was like a stat where like it was with Tom Brady and I forget who else, and it wasn't even like a rookie stat. It was like a overall like quarterback stat. But I think you just need to know what the expectations are, where it's like Caleb Williams is an upgrade in talent than you've had in a very long time, probably since Jay Cutler, I would probably say, just based on the talent and all that kind of stuff. And you just need to know that, there are going to be bad mistakes. He'll throw an interception when he shouldn't have. He'll hold on to the ball for too long, and people will be like, well, it's Justin Fields all over again. And I know this is hard to say, but fans need to just have a level head, heading into the season, and know he's going to make great plays. He's going to make bad plays, but you hope that as the season progresses and he gets more looks, you see those glimpses and you see him, take leadership and take ownership of the offense, where you end the season and maybe you make the playoffs and you're like, all right, like there was more good than bad. There's a lot to build off of. And I think we might have our guy. I think those are the expectations. I think thinking, can we make it to the Super Bowl or like go to the NFC Championship game? I think we need to slow things down a little bit. I think this is a talented team, but there's still some holes on this team right now.
Let's remember that Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions as a rookie. Like one season doesn't even. I know it's hard, but we're not even going to be able to fully judge Caleb off this season, and it's hard to sit here and look at the 17-game schedule and say, well, it might not, give us all the answers we're looking for, but it might not, and that's okay. We got to get out of here. I don't want to end on this negativity though. We got to end on a positive note, Michael.
I have one thing I want to say before we're done with our spring OTAs. I don't think we've talked about it too much. I feel like people were upset about the punter pick, and let me tell you, after seeing some of those punts, I'm buying in. I'm bought in. You might think like, oh, it's a punter. Like, how much could the ball move? And I feel like we've had Eberflus talk about it a few times. That ball changes direction. I don't know what he does to those punts, but like, those are going to cause some problems, and especially at Soldier Field when it gets windy and that kind of stuff. I'm bought in. I'm into the punter talk. Let's do it. Like, I am really excited to see what this kid is able to do. Obviously, he's not a. Obviously, I'm kind of messing around a little bit, and it's not going to be like a storyline like Caleb Williams or anything like that. But I do think that he will make an impression on games, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Michael, I love that I said I need a positive storyline to end on, and you brought up the punter. That's go. All we need. I love it.
This is the Bears after all. Like, it would feel wrong just to talk about like franchise quarterbacks and not talk about the punter. I'm surprised we haven't talked about the backup quarterback, but maybe we'll talk about that, later in the summer.
I agree with exactly what you said about Torrey Taylor. First of all, man, that dude can boot it. I mean, some of the distance is just insane. It's crazy to see with your eyes. It's like, oh my gosh, that dude can really kick the football. Yeah. Like some of the spin on that thing and the way that it sort of changes directions in the air. There was one day, it was really windy one of those days too, and that might have been part of it. But at the same time, I think he was doing something intentionally to sort of play into that. I remember there was one that landed, it maybe hit the 5, then rolled to the 1, and then just like started rolling sideways along the goal line. I was like, how did he do that? That shouldn't be possible.
Right.
He's going to be really fun to watch. He's going to be, if there's any punter that, fans are gonna buy the jersey of, this might be the guy. This might be the one punter that football fans are excited to see.
Yeah, and I know, Chicago in general, sports fans love like that little, underdog story, or they latch on to a guy that isn't the main guy, they're going to latch onto this punter. I agree with you. I think you'll see a lot of Taylor jerseys out there. I think they're going to like his moxie. I think they're going to like the Australian part of it, because obviously it's different than what we're used to around here, and the accent will get everyone excited. So he's definitely like my player who, like, he'll be important. Obviously, it's not to take away the third phase of the game from the sport, but obviously he's not going to be like at the same level as Caleb Williams. But he's definitely a guy where it's kind of like, oh, like that would be kind of fun to like root for a guy that's a punter.
And like, he can legitimately be a big part of your defense if he's downing teams, inside the 10, inside the 5. That's gonna really help out your defense, coming from the special team side. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. Michael, I love ending on that note. Thank you for that lovely moment.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if it wouldn't be right for us to end the spring portion of this if we didn't talk punting at least a little bit.
At least a little bit. And yeah, that was a big addition. 4th round pick. All right, guys, head to shawlocal.com to read all of our Bears content. We'll still have stuff up for you over the next month. Hit the thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, like our stuff on Twitter. Everything helps. I'm at Sean_Hammond on Twitter. Michael is at Dwojak94. This has been the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. Thank you for joining us, everybody.